All right, well, good afternoon and welcome to our business town hall and restaurants, pubs, and outside dining. I'm Paul Fry, President of the Chamber, and I'll be moderating this webinar for the next hour or so. We're glad you're here and welcome. Again, if you have questions along the way, there is a chat function at the bottom of your screen. You can click on that and type in a question. We'll monitor that. And there'll also be time if you'd rather ask verbally. You can do that as well by unmuting yourself. If you're on the phone and you would like to speak, you must hit *6. That'll unmute you, and then *6 will mute you again. So we'll begin now, and as people join us, we will welcome them aboard. And I'm Paul Fry, I'll moderate. And we have a number of state and local elected officials on the call. We have some various county and city staff on the call as resources and listening in. We have some local health experts, including our health officer. We also have, if not all the members, a number of the members of our COVID-19 business response team. You see them listed here from the Maryland Department of Commerce, Angie Sargent, from Washington County, Director of the Business Development Department, Susan Small, City of Hagerstown, Director of Community Economic Development, Jill Thompson. Again, I'm President of the Chamber. I serve on that team as well. Dan Spedden, President of the CVB. We have Jim Kercheval, Executive Director for Greater Hagerstown Committee, and Dave Schuster with Goodwill. So we were meeting every morning up until last week. Now we meet every other day, and so we're resources for you. Again, I'll moderate today's webinar. We have Kathy Marr and Amy Riley, City of Frederick, or Freudian slip, City of Hagerstown. I was just reading an article about the City of Frederick. City of Hagerstown. Vaughn Miles Swain, she's the administrator for the Washington County Liquor Board. And Alan Levin is also going to join us if he could. He is one of the commissioners of the Liquor Board. Earl Stoner, health officer. So again, we'll all be here. We do want to thank the Maryland Department of Commerce. We borrowed some of this information, some of the slides from them as well when they did a presentation. So welcome everybody, and we'll go to the next slide. And just a reminder to please mute your phone or computer. We are recording this webinar so that you can re-listen to it, or we can share it with somebody else, so the resources can be available after today. We want to provide you with up-to-date information and guidance to help you reopen in a safe manner. There will be time for questions, again, either in a chat function or verbally. Next slide, please. You can see about the questions. You can also get this slide deck and webinar will be available at this website within the next 24 hours. Actually, in your chat box, there is the link to this right now, to the slide deck. Again, the recording will be made within 24 hours. A public webinar, so the press may be joining us, just FYI. Next slide. We want to provide information as accurately as possible. It's not legal advice. We ask you to, if you have questions, talk to your HR professional and or your labor law attorney if needed, your CPA or accountant as needed. Review all local and state policies for the guidelines, and then the Washington County government and its affiliates cannot be held responsible for errors or omissions. So that's just our details there. Here's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to open businesses for the sake of being healthy. We don't want to wait until we have a vaccine to open our businesses. We want to do both. So we want to have good public health and health guidelines, and also get our businesses back open. Our hospital, along with the health department, are monitoring 10 key data points on our COVID-19 dashboard every day. And things like COVID-19 testing, what the current bed capacity is at Meritus, our ventilator capacity, how many days since doubling of cases, contact tracing capabilities. So we have 10 data points we're monitoring closely every day. We are in the green on 8 of them, and we're in yellow on 2 of them. So we're in good shape on health-wise. We want to caution us as we reopen to be safe, to be responsible, because we don't want to go backwards. So we want to provide you with resources and financial support. Again, there's a lot of data out there, a lot of information that consumers, business owners, employees are fearful of coming back. So we want to build the confidence for all the stakeholders so that they're comfortable coming back, and you're a big part of that as a business owner and a leader in the community. So our goal is to help you reopen safely and responsibly. And as you know, the executive order on May 27th, restaurants and bars and social clubs like the VFW Elks Club with dining facilities may serve food and beverages for consumption in outdoor seating areas, sell food and beverages on a carry-out or drive-through basis, and or deliver food and beverages to customers off premises. Not off promises, off premises. Subject to discretion of the local jurisdiction. Again, every county can make a decision to implement up to what the governor allows it to, but not more. And we are fully executing all of the reopenings according to the executive order. Next slide, please. So again, restaurant and bars, social clubs that serve food in outdoor areas shall require all staff to wear face coverings in accordance with the order. Ensure patrons are seated at least 6 feet away from each other, except for households seated together. Not allow groups larger than 6 persons to be seated together, except members of the same household. Not serve food in a buffet format, and clean and disinfect each table between each seating in accordance with CDC and MDH guidelines. Next slide. And here are the recommendations from our CDC and our public health friends. Social distancing, facial covering, good hand hygiene. Again, this goes for everyone, including having signage up for your customers to wash your hands frequently for at least 20 seconds. Practice good hygiene with cough and sneezing. Have an effective cleaning and disinfection program in place, and not allowing your employees or yourself to work or people coming into your place of business when they're ill or on home isolation, and have good signage and communications. Next slide, please. There is information at this website. Again, you'll get this information that you can link on here, but good information for resources and documents. It's really important, if you're not already reopened, to have a plan, and if you are reopened, to make sure you're following a plan. Staff training is critical, and not just once, but daily, because people forget, and it's a good reminder. What do you do to prevent the spread of COVID-19? Make sure your employees are in good health. If you have folks who are not able to work, you adhere to the leave policies at a state and federal level. Make sure you have facial coverings for patrons and staff. Again, it's still, the governor still stated that when you're in a retail situation or in restaurants, picking up, or you're outside, when you're interacting with staff, you're wearing a face mask. If you're eating, that's different, but you still want to have facial coverings for your staff. Physical facility evaluation, make sure you know where the hot points are, where your issues are around light switches and doorknobs and high use areas. Make sure you have good communication signage, not only for reminders for your staff, but also for the public. And then routine environmental cleaning, again, especially high touch areas. And we have a local health department on the line for additional questions, and make sure you have those additional requirements addressed. Next slide. And we talked about training employees, hand hygiene, cleaning protocols, daily screening for symptoms, and we'll go through some of those when your employees come to work. Sick worker policy with home isolation, maintain social distancing, and that goes for your breaks as well. So if your employees are taking a break, you need to practice social distancing as well there. Facial coverings, interacting with public and staff. And once again, looking for high touch areas, make sure you're cleaning them and sanitizing them on a regular basis. Next slide, please. As we've seen in many retail operations, make sure you're putting some 6-foot visual marking systems in place so people have an idea what 6 feet measurements are. Make sure your floor plans ensure a 6-foot distance between, except with households. And if you have booths, even if they have backs, they have to be every other booth. And if you have outdoor bar seating, again, 6-foot social distancing, even if you have outdoor bar seating, it still has to be followed. Minimize the congregating in common areas. So if you have a pickup area, make sure your customers are staying separated, and then have a reservation system so that people know when to come in, including texting and signs. No pagers. You know, a lot of these sit-down restaurants, fast casual, have pagers. No pagers because of the high touch on those. Next slide, please. Again, we want to be prepared. Make sure you have facility capacity. You have lines set up. You don't want crowds gathering. Again, signage is for the customers too. Make sure that if they're coming to pick up food, not to enter if they have symptoms or if they are sick. And large gatherings still not allowed at this time. Next slide, please. Frequent cleaning and disinfecting, especially high-touch areas. Table settings. Provide, when you can, single-service condiments. So in other words, ketchup packs versus bottles of ketchup. Clean and disinfect condiment containers. If you have menus that are reusable, make sure they can be wiped off, or use disposable menus. Cleaning procedures for soft goods, so linens, tablecloths, make sure you take them off, put them in a separate container in a bag until they can be washed. Customer self-service strongly discouraged, so no buffets obviously are prohibited. Make sure if normally customers could get their own utensils or whatever, that you're providing that for them. Coffee bars, enhanced cleaning, again, limited number of customers, and use napkins. Next slide. Strongly recommend to get rid of the multi-use items, magazines, coupons, anything that's reused and high touch, just eliminate them to minimize the exposure and to create a better, safe environment. A hand sanitizer, make it available for your guests and employees and customers. Again, soap and water available at every sink. If possible, touchless payment options, facial coverings for employees and customers should be utilized, and then disposable paper towels in restrooms, including making sure the trash cans are in such a place that when your customers use your restrooms, they can open the door with the paper towel and not touch the handle and then throw that paper towel into the trash can. So you may have to resituate where your trash cans are in your restrooms. Next slide, please. And we're ready to go. All right. Communication is key. Again, folks are worried, are we operating in a safe manner? They don't want to get sick. We have heard feedback here locally in Hagerstown. Some restaurants have opened up. The customers are very happy and actually have come to certain restaurants because they're promoting safe practices and what they're doing to maintain a clean environment and adhering to our guidance. So posted signage about social distancing, about what you're doing, communicate with your employees. What are you doing to make sure that they're staying safe and that they're getting what they need as far as masks and gloves and sanitizer? And they are part of the solution. Your employees need to help you. If they're not feeling well, they need to communicate that with you. And then let the customers know what you're doing with the process for reserving seating, for ordering. They're very understanding, but communications is key. So if you tell them ahead of time what the expectations are and what you're doing, I think they're a little bit more understanding. Next slide. And we suggest this is available at washcorises.net, among other resources, but there's a sign here that you can post outside your business and it's ready to go. Just put a phone number in there. If you have questions, you can post this, talking about what not to do, about wash your hands, facial coverings, that type of thing. So again, it's pre-made sign and we recommend putting this communication up. Next slide, please. So worker screening, what to ask your workers when they come every day. Have you had any of the following symptoms in the last 14 days? You can see what they are. Is there anyone in your immediate household exhibiting these symptoms, or do they have the infection, or are they sick? And have you had a positive test for COVID-19 within the past 10 days? So if it says yes, then you need more explaining there too. Temperature checks will not required. You can do that. And again, just be consistent with it and make sure you track that. And you know, I think it's 100.4 is when people need to not be working. So again, this is a daily screening to do with your employees. So outdoor seating guidelines in the city. I think this is where I turn it over to Kathy Marr is on the line with us. So next slide, and Kathy, I think I'm going to turn this over to you. You and or Jill.
Good afternoon. When the governor came out with this Wednesday at 5 o'clock, the next morning city staff met to figure out what can we do to facilitate this, because we knew we were going to get people wanting to do it immediately on Friday, 48 hours later. So fortunately, we already had a process in place. If you have a restaurant that's adjoins a public sidewalk, it's our Sidewalk Cafe license program, and that's how businesses you see on South Potomac Street that have the little fence enclosures, they already have a license. So we have that process. It's pretty quick, goes to the engineering department. So that's what you would need to go through. You have to fill out the application, provide an illustration of your planned layout on the sidewalk and what the fencing is going to be like if you're doing alcohol out there. Also, if you're planning to do alcohol, you have to get the liquor board to agree to it and get a license from them if you don't already have a license. Typically, in the regular times, if you had a license for the building, they would require a separate license for the sidewalk, but it would appear from this material that they've loosened things up a little bit. If you already have a license with them, you still need their approval, but it's an easier process. And you also need to attach your liability insurance to show that it would cover having your business out on the public sidewalk. And then you have to provide access to the restrooms for your patrons. Then for private property, we had to actually convene the council on Friday to adopt an emergency ordinance to waive our typical temporary use permit process so that it could work for this kind of indefinite temporary use. And so that was adopted Friday afternoon. And so now if people want to do a new outdoor dining area on private property, they apply for a temporary use permit with the city. It's reviewed by the code official and the fire marshal and the zoning administrator, and we alert the health department, because what we're looking for, it's up to you to comply with the health requirements established by the governor. But what we're looking for is making sure that the proper egress is maintained to doorways to the business or to neighboring businesses, and that handicap accessibility issues are taken into account. And if it's a tent, which you need a separate tent permit, if there's a tent, you have to make sure that the tent fabric meets fire standards. And the way you're going to stake it into the ground, make sure it's not going to conflict with utilities. So there's all of this process. And we've already, since Friday, received 3 requests for the public dining on private property, and we're processing those applications now. We don't need the insurance for that because you're on your own property. Your own insurance will handle all of that. And again, you would have to provide access to restrooms for your patrons. Let's see. Looking at the next couple of slides about the 5-foot access for pedestrians, considering the location of utilities, if you're going to be pounding things or putting things up. And if it's going to be in a parking lot, because we're being a little bit lax allowing the tent or the dining to be in a parking lot, we have to make sure there's still adequate parking somewhere for your patrons, and also that whatever you're rigging up is not going to conflict with traffic. And then the other thing to take into consideration is that this temporary use permit for these temporary outdoor dining areas is good for the length of the governor's executive order. However long that lasts, that's however long the temporary use permit will be for. Once that is taken away, then the temporary use permit will expire, and these temporary areas would have to be taken away and the site returned to its previous or better condition. If the business decide that they really like having outdoor dining, then and they want to have it permanently, then they would go through a site plan review process, figure out where in their property they can have it besides right in the parking lot, because that won't be possible for a permanent situation, and just go through that process. So I guess that's it for me from the Planning and Code Administration Department.
And Kathy, 2 things. One, there are no permit fees or application fees. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. And I do know from talking with Jill Thompson that the city is, there are regulations, there are requirements. The city is attempting to work with our local businesses and with the restaurants to make this as easy as possible. We still want to make sure that you don't have any undue liability on your side. The city doesn't either. But I do know that, the city is trying to make this as easy as possible for us to reopen in a safe manner so you can serve your guests and you can start to reopen again. So we appreciate the city working. And while we're on this section, are there any questions either in the chat room you can send us a question, or if you want to unmute yourself, again, if you're on the phone, *6 to unmute and *6 to mute again, or just unmute yourself if you're on video. We'll take a minute here if there's any questions for Kathy at this point. And if they're not, we can also come back if you think of one.
Or they can always contact me at the city if something they think of it later.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. And again, I can't
Absolutely.
remember if Jill's still on the call, but thank you, Jill, for working with us here at the city. Our next area, we're going to be talking about liquor laws. And you've talked about serving alcohol in outdoor seating areas. And so we have with us from the Liquor Commission, Vaughn. So Vaughn, we're going to go to the next slide and turn it over to you. Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Everyone? Well, as you know, effective May 27, 2020, the restaurants, bars, and social fraternal clubs are now allowed to do outdoor seating.
And Vaughn, I'm just going to ask you to speak up a little bit more. I'm having difficulty hearing you.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out
Let's go
how to
right
get
there.
to my volume from here, but I can't seem to turn it up.
You're good. That's
Okay,
good.
I'm good now? Okay, so the restaurants, bars, and the clubs are now allowed to do outdoor seating, an outdoor seating area. So what we are asking from them is to submit a photo, a sketch, a drawing of the areas that they're looking to do the outdoor seating. Then what I do is once I receive those emails, then I send it over to the commissioners and they look at them and then they let me know whether they're approved. Once they are approved, then I send them to the establishment owner that's requesting the temporary outdoor seating. And I state to them that this is actually what is stated in the email, that the board has approved your request for a temporary outdoor seating area as long as it complies with the regulations of the state, the county, city, the fire marshal, health department, and zoning. So, and then just please remember the peace and safety of your surrounding neighbors. The ones who have the sidewalk cafes or the patios out back, they are allowed to do those without, because they already have a license for those. And then the clubs that have pavilions, we still are asking for photos of the area which you are using, just so that we can regulate who's doing what. So I pretty much kind of went over everything just in just a couple slides. But I mean, if anybody has any questions, as long as this is right now a temporary situation, and as it moves forward with any decision that the governor has or says things are changing, you know, almost every month. So as of right now, we're doing the carry out and delivery still. Now we're moved on to outdoor seating with the social distancing. And then who knows where we'll be going from that direction. But as I said, you know, everything is temporary based on what he has put in order. And then when that goes away, when he states that it's gone, then it goes back to the way it was.
Thank you. There is one question. I'm not sure if this is a question for you or not, Vaughn, but someone on the call. What is the maximum capacity for outdoor seating for social clubs? In other words, if you have a big field, whether you have a tent or not, question is maximum capacity. And Jim, is it still fewer than 50 people gathered right now? Do you know, Jim Kirchhoff?
Let me double check on that, Paul. I'm not aware of the specific numbers. I know they do not want you to have, like, you know, organized events just because you go outside, you know, to schedule an organized special event for 250 people or anything like that. But let me double check on that.
Okay. Yeah, again, you know, we also have Alan Levin, one of the commissioners on the webinar with us. Um, I will say the Liquor Commission is trying to make it as easy as possible, but we want you to comply with the guidelines. Don't want to do anything outside the law or the guidelines. They do want to make it as easy as possible to try to make some changes here, as Vaughn said, as long as the governor has these orders out. And Alan or Vaughn, there are no permit fees or application fees for this, is that correct?
No, the only thing that we're doing right now is like for the temporary delivery, we're requesting that they send us a request for the delivery. And this is, again, is just to regulate who is doing it. It gives us an idea of who is out there doing the deliveries, who is out there doing the outdoor seating. And when it comes to the regulations of how many people are allowed to be in an outside area, that's again going to be based on the city or the county fire marshal.
And then this is either for Vaughn or Alan or maybe Kathy or Jill, if she's still on the line. We've talked about doing possibly the first block of North and South Potomac Streets respectively on the weekends, maybe not this weekend, but starting next weekend, in the evenings on Saturday and Friday and Saturday to close the street down to traffic. If and when that happens, temporary seating, we're still able to do that and serve alcohol at that point.
Well, I can state based on the liquor board, I mean, if this is something that the city would do, would be to close down the streets and just say 28 South, based on the location of the areas that you're doing it, like 28 South, Schmeek and Stube, or Bulls and Bears, the Art Gastropub, Sino Taco, anybody who's in that area who would be interested in doing it, that they would again send us a sketch of the area, the base of the street, of where they are looking to do it. And as long as it's okay with the city, technically it's okay with us.
And so I bring that
This
up.
is Jill.
Go ahead, Jill.
This is Jill from the city. And we're still in a planning stage for this. So we did put together a proposed recommendation and have communicated with our restaurants in the downtown area. We're gathering some feedback. We're not ready to make a decision on that. The format for this would be not like Wind Down Friday, but rather that each business would have their controlled area and would work with the guidelines of the liquor board. So not designed to be a festival format or a Wind Down Friday format. So bear with us as we work through the planning and the communication. But again, as Paul said, not intended to be for this weekend, possibly the weekend after as we further shape up plans.
And again, just to reinforce, the city and the liquor board commissioners are trying to make it easy to do this. Again, stay within the guidelines and the laws. So if you're thinking about, you may want to do this if this happens, start making your plans now, start doing outreach to the respective agencies now, so that when the green light comes on, if it's in a week or 2 weeks, you're ready to go and not pressing them at the last minute, because like you, everyone has lots to do. So talk to them now, give a little bit of lead time, start asking your questions, start planning now is always the best thing to do. We're going to thank you, Vaughn, and thank you, Alan, and thank you, Jill and Kathy. We're going to keep going now. They're going to stay on the call if there's other questions after the fact. But let's go on to the next slide, if you would, please. So frequently asked questions. Let's see here. Again, you can see, still want to keep social distancing in place. As Jim said, just because we can open up on a field doesn't mean you can jam 300 people into a place. We want to follow social distancing, again, except for households sitting together, and no more than 6 people may be seated together. Next slide. Can customers use indoor restrooms? The answer is yes. We talked about that a little bit earlier. If they're seated outside, they still need to use restrooms, make them available. Make sure you have where you want them to enter, where you want them to exit. If you have A restroom that only has one toilet in there, you don't want people gathering in hallways. So make sure you have a plan and let them know, you know, if they're waiting to use the restroom, where you'd like them to wait and not to just gather in groups. Even more so, restrooms should be cleaned frequently. Make sure you have plenty of soap and water, hand sanitizer, disposable hand towels. And again, you may want to look where your trash cans are so people can open their doors and then use a towel for the handle and then throw it away. And there is guidance you saw in that last slide. Can restaurants have buffets? Absolutely not. Again, buffets have a lot of high touch, a lot of congregation there, you know, people using serving utensils. So the answer is no, no buffets right now, including social clubs. Next slide, please. Who should wear facial coverings? Just to reinforce this, restaurants are required to comply with the facial coverings order, which says you should be, staff should be wearing this when you're interacting with customers and other staff. If staff's in the kitchen, again, they should be wearing the facial coverings. If when your customers are eating, they obviously need to take their masks off. But if they're in close proximity and they're interacting with the staff for ordering or the bill, you should be wearing your facial covering. Again, this is to help minimize the spread of germs and diseases to keep them in your mask or in your facial covering. Next slide, please. Again, patrons must be seated 6 feet apart. This goes, can physical barriers be used between tables instead of keeping 6 feet apart? No. You can put a physical barrier there, but you still need to have them 6 feet apart. And again, if they're booths, they need to be every other booth, even though they're back to back in a barrier there. Next slide. Next question. We have for you, you may have seen this already, a toolkit. And it's 30-some pages. It has safety best practices by industry. There's a fair amount on restaurants, especially as you reopen. There's some resources there. We want to make that available. Again, washcorises.net. There's a lot of resources, information there, including this toolkit. Yesterday morning, 8 o'clock, the county working with the city established a Rise Up Washington County Business Stabilization Grant. If you have 50 or fewer employees, your sales are under $5 million a year, you can get an up to $10,000 grant. It's not a loan, it's a grant. We have almost $9 million to be awarded, first come, first serve. We have till the 15th to fill out the application. I wouldn't wait. The application itself probably takes 10 to 15 minutes, but there are some financial forms you need to have. Again, it's on that site, the forms you need, and I would highly recommend, if you're eligible, to apply. With that said, there's some more resources. Before we go any further, I think I recall Earl from the health department is on. Earl Stone, are you on the call with this on a webinar? Trying to see who is on here. If Earl was on, I just wanted to see if he had any other comments, any other feedback from the health department's perspective.
Paul, while you're waiting for Earl, I did check the two governor's orders for the 27th and the 29th, as well as their guidance on their Back to Business website. And there is nothing listed as far as maximum number of people that you're allowed in your outdoor dining. Again, I would say try to run by the spirit of the law and you know what you're putting together, but there is no specific numbers there. If we hear anything different, we'll let you know.
Thank you. And then if there's anyone else from our work group on there, I know Angie was on an earlier call, Angie Sargent. I did see someone from the Department of Labor. Is it Teresa? I don't know if you have anything to weigh in on.
No, I don't have anything to add, Paul.
Okay, well, again, thank you and your team for your work with us. You know, I know some of the unemployment insurance we've been working on, and thank you for the work you're doing, and again, at our commerce group as well.
Paul, Angie Sargent here. I am on the line. I really appreciate the opportunity to say a couple things here. And I think just in general, something to keep in mind is it is so much of your business coming back, so much of your business in general, but especially now is going to be built on the reputation that you establish for cleanliness and things like that. So if you have, this is an opportunity to perhaps even turn around a reputation for maybe being a little less than spotless, or this is also a time to really maximize your good reputation that you're bringing into this situation. So people will know what restaurants are taking this seriously, and people will know which will not be taking this seriously. So this really is an opportunity to maximize how you're going to be able to pull out of the situation. So just some random thoughts for today. Back to you, Paul. Unless Rob Free has something. I see Rob says something. What's up, Rob Free?
Well, I do want to reinforce what Andrew has said, that we mentioned earlier in this webinar, that your customers, your employees, they want to know that you're following the guidelines, you're operating in a safe manner. And I will reinforce that the stakeholders from the city, county, and state agencies, as well as the partners working every other day and meeting and talking, we're resources for you. Everyone wants you to do well. They want you to reopen safely. So if you have concerns that it's a gotcha moment, it's not. So just reach out, get the answers to your questions you need, because we want you to do well. We know that's the best way, not only for physical health, but also for economic health, for us to get back on track here in Washington County. And as we did in our last webinar, we have the chat function if you have questions. Again, if you'd rather ask verbally, you can unmute yourself. If you're on the phone, again, it's *6.
This is Earl. I'm here.
Hey, Earl. Good afternoon. And
Sorry, I had some technical problems getting unmuted.
we're glad you're here, and I want to give you the opportunity to weigh in from your perspective as health officer, as far as opening up safely and responsibly, and making sure we're getting business moving again, and we're also managing and monitoring our health.
So I think you did a good job at with it. It's really a situation for us. It's individuals who were already opened and sort of pre-pandemic were operating, and for the most part, we have really good restaurants here, and the inspections that we do, obviously those things are still in effect. But within our opening under the pandemic, it really, as you mentioned, comes down to the cleaning, disinfecting, the social distancing aspect, and the face coverings. So I wouldn't have much to add other than that.
Okay. Well, thank you. I do want to emphasize that there's lots of resources. If you have a question about where to get face coverings or PPE or sanitizer, reach out to any of us, of the partners that you saw at the beginning of the slides for this webinar. You can go, paul@hagerstown.org. I know I don't have all the answers, but I have lots of resources, and we're working with lots of partners. If you can't find something you need, reach out to us. We'll help you, because we want you to be successful and want you to do it in the right way. If you have a question about guidelines, about any of the laws, any of the governance, let us know. We'll help you get the right answer. And again, the partners are standing ready, willing, and able to get you reopened safely. It's been a challenge. It's been a long, almost 3 months on everybody. We'll monitor what we're doing, and hopefully we'll move in a forward direction here from here on out. Jim, unless there's anything else that you want to wrap up with, we'll end this webinar. Again, it'll be available for you to rewatch or to get the resources. Any other questions, though, reach out to someone on this call. We'll get you the information you need. With that, I want to thank the county for their work with us, the city, and the rest of folks in partnership. And everyone be safe, and we'll hopefully see you at your restaurant soon. Thanks.